Why could you do to improve yourself? Well, let's step one step backwards. The first question might be why you should even bother improving yourself. And I think the answer to this is something like that. You do not suffer any more stupidly than you have to. And maybe others don't have to either. It's something like that. There is a real injection at the bottom of it. It's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's that if you do not organize yourself properly, you will pay for it. And in a big way. And so will the people around you. And you could say, well, I don't care about that. But there is actually not true. You actually do care about that, because if you're in pain, you will care about it. So you do care about it, even if it's just the negative way. It's a very rare that you can find someone who is in excruciating pain who could ever say, well, it would be no better if I was out of this. The pain is one of those things that brings me the idea that it would be better if it didn't exist along this way. It's introconvertible. So you get your act together so that there isn't any more stupid pain around you than necessary. Well, so then the question might be, well, how would you go about getting your act together? And the answer to that, and this is phenomenological idea too, it's something like look around for something that bothers you and see if you can fix it. You can do this in a room. It's quite fun to do that. It's just when you're sitting in a room, it's like a room, maybe your bedroom. You can sit there and just meditate on that thing. Okay, if I wanted to spend 10 minutes making this room better, why would it have to do? And you have to ask yourself, right? It's not a comment, it's a genuine question, and things will pop up in the room that you know. Like there is a stack of paper over there that's bugging you, and you know that's maybe a little order. There would be a good things, and you know you haven't. There are some rubbish behind your computer monitor that you haven't attended for 6 months. And the room would be slightly better if it was a little less dusty and cables weren't all tangled up in the same way. And if you allow yourself just to consider the expense in which you exist at the moment, there will be all sorts of things that will pop up in that you could just fix. It might say, well, if you were coming to see me for psychotherapy, the easiest things for us to do first would just be to get you to organize the room. You think, well, is that psychotherapy? And the answer is, well, it depends on how you conceive the limits of your being. And I would say, start where you can start, you know? If something announces itself to you, which is a strange way of thinking about it, as in a need of repair that you could repair, then, hey, fix it. You fix 100 things like that, your life will be a lot different. Now, I often tell people too, fix the things you repeat every day, because people tend to think of these as trivial. You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, you have your routine that you go through every day. Well, these probably constitute 50% of your life, and people think, well, they're mundane. I don't need to pay attention to them. It's like, no, that's exactly wrong. The things that you do every day, these are the most important things you do. Hands down. All you have to do is to do arithmetic. You figure out the right way. So 100 adjustment to your broader domain of being. And there is a lot of less rubbish. And there are less rubbish around, and lot fewer traps for you to step into. And so that's a keeping us June's idea about erasing day. Once you got your mind and your emotion together, and once you're acting that out, you can extend what you're willing to consider yourself and start fixing up the things that are part of your broader extent. Now, sometimes you do not know how to do that. So you might say, imagine you're walking down Blue Street and there is no guy who's alcoholic and schizophrenia and has been on the street for 10 years. He stumbled toward you and in currently matters something. That's a problem. And it would be good if you could fix it, but you haven't got a clue how to fix that. You just walk around and go find something that you could fix, because if you mock about it in that, not only is it very likely that you will help that person, it's very likely that you will get hurt yourself. So just because while you're experiencing things around themselves as in need of repair doesn't mean that it's the right then that should repair them. You have to come humility. You have some humility. You don't walk up to helicopter that isn't working, just starting thinking away with it. You have to stay within your domain of competence. The most of the time, if people look at their lives, it's very interesting to do. I like the idea of room because you can do that at the drop of the hat. You back up to where you live and sit down and think, okay, I'm gonna make this place better. For half an hour, what should I do? You have to ask the things just pop up like mad. And it's partially because your mind is a very strange thing. As soon as you give it a genuine aim, it's reconfigure the world in keeping with the aim. That's actually how you see to begin with. And so if you set it a text, especially you have to be genuine about it, which is why you have to bring your thought and emotion together, and then you have to get them in your body so you're acting consistently. You have to be genuine about the aim. But once you aim, the world will reconfigure itself around that aim, which is very strange. And it's technically true. The best example of that, you have all seen this video where you watch the basketball being tossed back and forth between members of the white team and versus young team. And while you're doing that, a gorilla walks up into the middle of the video and you do not see it. It's like if you thought about the experiment for about 5 hours, that would be about the right amount of time to spend thinking about it, because what it shows you is that you see what you aim at. And that man, if you can get one thing through your heads as a consequence of even being in university, that would be a good one. You see what you aim at. And so because one interferes, you might draw from the, be careful what you aim at. What you aim at determines the way the world manifests itself to you. So if the world is manifesting itself in a very negative way, one thing to ask is, are you aiming at is the right things? No. I'm not trying to reduce everybody's problem to an improper way. People get caught up at the knees for all sorts of reasons. They get sick, they have accident, there is a random element to being. That's for sure, and you don't want to take everything, even the particular phrase, too far. You want to bend in with the fact that random things do happen to people, but it's still a great thing to ask. If you find this video inspiring, please do not forget to share, to like, and subscribe it. What is the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful? The successful sacrifice things get better as the successful practice their sacrifice. The questions become increasingly precise and simultaneously broader. What is the greatest possible sacrifice for the greatest possible good? And the answers become increasingly deeper and profound. You can conjure up a representation of yourself. You can conjure up a variety of potential representation of yourself in the future. You can lay out how those future representation of yourself are likely to prevail or fail. You can call the potential use in the future that will fail. And you can embody the ones that will succeed. You do that while simultaneously conjuring up representation of your current state and determining for yourself, because of your undue suffering, which elements of your pathetic being needs to be given up so that you can move forward into that future. And the goal, what is that you're aiming at with that work and the sacrifice? That's the ultimate question, is the question I was trying to address in that writing. What is that you're trying to do? Are you trying to improve your future? We believe that the future can be improved. We believe that it can be improved as a consequence of your sacrificial work. And so, once again, what are your limitations? What are limits to do that? What are the necessary limits to do that? I would say we do not know. I would say as well that that's actually something that the entire corpus of biblical stories are trying desperately articulate to figure out and articulate. We conjure up this remarkable idea. The future exists. We can see it, even though it's only potential. We can adjust our behavior in the present in order to maximize our probability of success in the future. Now, best to do that. Well, the idea is something like, do not hesitate to offer the ultimate sacrifice. If you want the future to turn ultimately well, no. Now, obviously the idea is clothed in metaphysical speculation and religious imagery, but it still remains an intensely practical issue. What is that you could contract for? Let's say, if you are willing to give up everything about that, you're weak and unworthy then. You were taking that negotiation. You said something like, don't people who feel good about themselves, aren't they able to negotiate better? Negotiation is actually a practical issue to some degree. The first thing is that you have to figure out what you have, what you want, because you were saying, well, it's not merely rational. It's like, yeah, that's for sure. You have to bargain for a position of authority. Let's say no power, authority, but you do not have authority unless you know that what you're talking about, unless you can bring. And you cannot say no unless you've set yourself up with alternatives. When you go to your boss and you negotiate for a raise, you need to have the CV that enables you to go find another job, and you have to have your CV prepared, and you have to have looked for another job, and you have to be able to get one, because then you can go in there and say, I'm not as productive as I could be at my current level of remuneration. It's not reflective of what I'm able to do. It is what this, and this is what will happen if you give me this. This will be a good thing that will happen. What do you think of that? The person is gonna know, even by the way that you hold yourself while you're having the discussion, whether or not you're someone with options. You cannot fake that. Well, you can, but it's not helpful. It just doesn't work for every mini irritation. You have to. It's not rational. You're preparing yourself a battle. That's what you're doing. You cannot be weak when you prepare for the sofa battle, because if the person says, no, I'm not giving you a raise, which is exactly what you should say, because what are you going to do? Just sprinkle the money around. You need to be able to say, okay, then there will be consequences that you do not like. And that's what I mean to say to know somebody. No means if you continue to push there, things will happen that you do not like. Now, in that case, it'll depart and take my talent with me. And if they do not care well, then they're in the wrong business, or you do not have any talent to begin with. In order to negotiate properly, you have to put yourself in a position where you can push back as hard as are you going to push on. That means you have to open up your space of available option, because otherwise the person says no. And that's it. You're done. Well, you will lose that. It's as straightforward as that. Now, with regard to the self-esteem part, is practice on small things, because you build the skills. Forget about self-esteem. It isn't about being confident or feeling confront or any of that. It's about knowing bluntly well how to negotiate. Start with the small things. You will negotiate that there are things in your relationship in particular that aren't the way you want them to be, and you could see how it could be improved. It's like, figure out how they can be improved. Negotiate with your partner. Make the incremental improvement. Keep doing that. You will get better and better at that. And then you will be able to go out and have a harder negotiation in the world. People have told me many times that when they listen to me talk, they're hearing things that are already new, but didn't know how to say. It's something like that. And it's one of those things that I think it's exactly like that. I think it's a very core of our moral knowledge, which is our behavior knowledge and our perceptual knowledge. Let's get this straight. More knowledge is not a trivial matter. It's knowledge about how it is that you orient yourself in the world. There is no more profoundly necessary from the knowledge. Well, it's predicted on something that's exactly like this. We know that we have to make sacrifice. We know that we have to aim and what's good. So then, why isn't that you do not aim at what the best and make the sacrifice that are necessary in order to bring that into play? I think it seems to me that, in some sense, that's self-evident. The question is why you don't do it.